My friend, have you noticed something strange happening around you? The people who seem most alive, most aware, most connected to something real, they're disappearing. Not physically, perhaps, but from the social fabric, from the noise, from the constant chatter of everyday life. They're stepping back, withdrawing quietly, almost invisibly. And if you're listening to this, you might be one of them. You might feel this. Pull yourself, a gentle but persistent call away from the world as it is, away from the endless consumption, the shallow conversations, the performance of being normal. Let's explore this together. Because this withdrawal is not what most people think it is. Society tells us that to be successful, to be happy, to be fulfilled, we must be engaged, connected, visible, productive. We must be on social media, at the parties, climbing the ladder, accumulating, achieving, performing. The spiritually asleep are perfectly comfortable with this. They don't question it. They don't feel the discord. But those who have begun to awaken, those who have touched something real, something true, they feel it acutely. They feel the falseness of it all, and so they begin to withdraw. This withdrawal is not depression. It's not antisocial behavior or misanthropy. It's something much more subtle and much more profound. It's a natural response to seeing what is actually true. When you begin to see through the illusions that most people are living in, when you begin to recognize the conditioning, the programming, the endless chase for things that don't actually satisfy, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to sleep. And so you naturally begin to step away from the structures that perpetuate these illusions. Think about what happens when you first wake up to this reality. You're at a dinner party, and people are talking about their new car, their vacation plans, their latest purchase. And suddenly, you see it clearly. You see the anxiety beneath the excitement. You see the fear that drives the endless acquiring. You see people running on a treadmill, thinking they're moving forward, not realizing that the treadmill itself is the trap. And you can't participate in the conversation the way you used to. You can't pretend that these things matter. You can't generate the enthusiasm that's expected of you. So you become quiet. You withdraw inwardly, even while your body is still there. Or consider the workplace. You're surrounded by people competing, strategizing, playing politics, trying to climb over each other to get ahead, and you see it. You see how much energy is wasted on ego, on status, on the illusion that one person is better than another, that one position is more valuable than another. You see how people sacrifice their integrity, their peace, their authenticity for a promotion or a raise. And you can't do it anymore. You can't play the game. So you step back, you do your work, but you're not invested in the drama. You're not competing. You're not performing. And this makes you invisible in a world that only sees those who are desperately trying to be seen. The spiritually awake are disappearing because they're no longer interested in the things that bind most people to society. They're not interested in status. They're not interested in accumulation. They're not interested in being liked or admired or envied. These things have lost their power over them. And when you are not interested in these things, you become irrelevant to a society that is built entirely on these things. You become a ghost, moving through the world but not really part of it. But here's what's crucial to understand. This is not a loss. This is not something to mourn. This is a liberation. The spiritually awake are not disappearing, they're arriving. They're arriving at themselves. They're arriving at reality. They're arriving at a way of being that is so fundamentally different from what society offers that it appears as absence, as withdrawal, as disappearance. But it's actually the opposite. It's a profound presence, a deep engagement with what is real. Consider the quality of their presence. When a spiritually awake person is with you, they're actually there, not distracted, not performing, not thinking about what they need to do next or what others think of them. They're fully present. This presence is so rare, so different from what most people experience, that it can feel almost threatening. Because when you are in the presence of someone who is truly awake, you can't hide, you can't perform. Your own inauthenticity becomes visible to you. And most people are not comfortable with that. So they avoid these people, they find them strange, unsettling, boring even, because the awake person is not providing the stimulation, the drama, the entertainment that the sleeping world craves. The spiritually awake are also disappearing because they no longer resonate with the conversations, the entertainment, the concerns of mainstream society. They can't engage in gossip the way they used to. They can't get excited about celebrity news or the latest scandal. They can't participate in the collective anxiety about politics or economics or social trends, not because they're superior or judgmental, but because they've seen through it. They've recognized it as the noise that it is. And when you can't engage in the noise, you become isolated in a world that is built on noise. Think about what happens to your social circle when you awaken. The friendships that were based on shared activities, shared interests, shared illusions, they begin to fade. You realize that you don't actually have much in common with these people. You are bonded by conditioning, not by genuine connection. And as you change, as you become more authentic, more real, these friendships naturally dissolve. You are not rejecting these people and they're not rejecting you. You are simply recognizing that you're on different paths. And this can feel very lonely. I want you to really feel this for a moment. Imagine you've been part of a group of friends for years. You meet every weekend, you share meals, you celebrate birthdays together. But as you awaken, as you begin to see more clearly, you notice that the conversations are always the same. They're talking about who said what, who did what they bought, where they went. And there's a kind of emptiness to it all. You try to introduce deeper topics, to talk about meaning, about consciousness, about what really matters, but they're not interested. They change the subject. They make jokes to deflect. They become uncomfortable. And slowly you realize that you are no longer part of this group. Not because anyone said anything, not because there was a falling out, but because you've simply grown in a different direction. And this hurts. This is a real loss. But it's also necessary, because staying in those relationships would mean suppressing who you're becoming. It would mean pretending to be someone you're not. And the spiritually awake can't do that anymore. But simultaneously, something else is happening. The spiritually awake are finding each other, not through social media or networking events, but through a kind of invisible recognition. You meet someone and there's an immediate understanding. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to perform. You can just be. These connections are rare, but they're real. And they're infinitely more nourishing than 100 shallow friendships. When you meet another awake person, there's a quality of communication that is completely different. You can talk about things that matter. You can be silent together without it being awkward. You can share your struggles without fear of judgment. You can be authentic without having to defend or explain yourself. And this kind of connection, even if it's rare, is worth more than all the superficial relationships combined. The withdrawal of the spiritually awake is also happening at a deeper level. It's a withdrawal from the collective consciousness, from the mass mind that drives most human behavior. Most people are living in a kind of hypnotic state, responding to conditioning, following programs that were installed in them long ago. They wake up, go to work, come home, watch television, go to sleep, and repeat. They're not really living. They're just going through the motions, following a script that was written for them by society, by their parents, by their culture. And they don't question it. They don't ask why. They just do it because everyone else is doing it. The spiritually awake are waking up from this hypnosis. They're beginning to think for themselves, to question what they've been taught, to see through the manipulation and the propaganda. They're recognizing that most of what they've been told about how to live, what to value, what to pursue, it's all designed to keep them asleep, to keep them consuming, to keep them compliant. And once you see this, once you recognize the matrix of control that society operates within, you can't participate in it the same way anymore. You can't just follow the script. You can't just do what you're told. You start to question everything. And this questioning, this refusal to simply accept what you're told, makes you dangerous to the system. This withdrawal is also a form of self-protection. When you are awake in a world of sleepwalkers, you're vulnerable, people can sense that you're different, and difference is threatening. So they try to pull you back into the dream. They criticize you, they judge you, they try to make you feel wrong for being different. Your family might say you've changed, that you're not fun anymore, that you're too serious or too weird. Your colleagues might exclude you from social events because you don't participate in the office gossip or the competitive games. Your old friends might stop inviting you because you are a downer or because you make them uncomfortable with your questions and your observations. And the spiritually awake, recognizing this, naturally begin to protect their energy. They spend less time in situations where they're being drained or attacked. They choose solitude over false connection. They choose silence over meaningless chatter. They create boundaries. They say no to invitations that don't serve them. They stop trying to fit in. They stop trying to make others comfortable with their awakening. And in doing this, they disappear even more from the social landscape. But this disappearance is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's self-preservation. It's recognizing that your energy is precious and that you don't have to waste it on people and situations that drain you. But here's something beautiful that's happening in this withdrawal. The spiritually awake are creating a new world, a new way of being, even if it's invisible to most people. They're living more simply, more authentically, more in alignment with what is true. They're finding peace in solitude. They're discovering that they don't need the validation of society to know their own worth. They're learning to trust their own inner knowing, their own intuition, their own direct experience of reality. And in doing this, they're becoming whole. Think about what this looks like in practical terms. An awake person might leave a high-paying corporate job to do something more meaningful, even if it pays less. They might sell their big house and move to a smaller place, recognizing that they don't need all that space and all those possessions. They might delete their social media accounts, recognizing that they're just tools for comparison and distraction. They might spend more time in nature, more time in silence, more time alone. And to the sleeping world, this looks like failure. It looks like giving up. It looks like disappearing. But to the awake person, it's the opposite. It's finally living. It's finally being true to themselves. It's finally free. The disappearance of the spiritually awake is also a kind of mercy. Because their presence, their authenticity, their refusal to participate in the collective delusion, it's like a mirror. And most people don't want to see themselves in that mirror. They don't want to be confronted with their own inauthenticity, their own fear, their own complicity in the system. So when they awake withdraw, they're actually giving people permission to continue sleeping. They're not forcing anyone to wake up. They're not judging anyone for staying asleep. They're simply stepping back and allowing each person to find their own way. And yet, paradoxically, this withdrawal has a profound effect. It creates a space. It creates a possibility. It shows that another way of living is possible. Even if most people don't consciously recognize it, they sense it. They sense that there are people who have stepped out of the race, who are not competing, who are not desperate, who are not afraid. And this creates a kind of hope, even if it's unconscious. It shows that freedom is possible. It shows that you don't have to play the game. And for some people, this is enough to plant a seed. This is enough to make them start questioning. This is enough to begin their own awakening. There's also something happening on an energetic level. When the spiritually awake withdraw from the collective consciousness, they're no longer feeding it with their energy. The collective consciousness feeds on fear, on anxiety, on desire, on conflict. It needs people to be constantly worried, constantly wanting, constantly competing. And when you are no longer participating in that, when you are no longer contributing to the drama, you are actually weakening the hold that the collective consciousness has on humanity. You are creating a space for something new to emerge. You are creating a crack in the matrix, so to speak. And through that crack, light can enter. My friend, if you are feeling this pull toward withdrawal, if you are feeling increasingly alienated from the world as it is, if you're finding it harder and harder to participate in the collective delusion, this is not a problem. This is not a sign that something is wrong with you. This is a sign that you're waking up. This is a sign that you're becoming real. And yes, it can feel lonely. Yes, it can feel isolating. Yes, there will be moments when you wonder if you're making a mistake, if you should just go back to the way things were, if you should just try harder to fit in. But you can't. Once you have seen, you can't unsee. Once you've tasted freedom, you can't go back to prison, even if the prison is comfortable and familiar. Once you've touched something real, you can't settle for the fake anymore. And so you continue to withdraw, not because you're running away, but because you're running towards something. You're running toward yourself. You're running toward truth. You're running toward a way of being that is authentic and alive and real. The spiritually awake are not disappearing. They're arriving at themselves. They're arriving at a way of being that is so radically different from what society offers that it appears as absence, but it's actually presence. It's actually aliveness. It's actually the most real thing there is. And as more and more people awaken, as more and more people recognize the falseness of the collective dream, this withdrawal will become less lonely. This new world that's being created in the spaces between the old world will become more visible, more real, more tangible. But for now, for those who are awake, there is the sacred solitude of walking a path that few understand. And in that solitude, there is a peace that the world cannot give and cannot take away. There is a freedom that comes from no longer needing the approval or validation of a sleeping world. There is a joy that comes from being true to yourself, even when that means standing alone. And there is a knowing, a deep inner knowing, that you are exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you need to do, even if the world doesn't understand it. So if you're one of the ones who is quietly disappearing, know that you're not alone. Know that there are others like you scattered across the world, walking the same path, feeling the same pull toward authenticity, toward truth, toward reality. And know that your withdrawal is not weakness. It's not escape. It's not giving up. It's the most courageous thing you can do. It's choosing truth over comfort. It's choosing authenticity over acceptance. It's choosing freedom over security. And in that choice, you are not only saving yourself, you are creating a possibility for others to wake up as well.